there, I'm Stephen Lepetak, Executive Editor of The Drum, and this is the latest in a series of conversations I'm having with the chairs of our awards. And I'm pleased to be joined by Lara Islan from ITV, who was the chair of The Drum's Digital Advertising Awards. Lara, thank you for joining me.
Hi, Stephen. It's a pleasure to be here with you. And it was a pleasure indeed to chair this year's Digital Advertising Awards.
Yeah, thank you for doing that as well. I was so pleased you said yes.
Well, it's my second time, Stephen. Don't forget, right? So I did do it once before.
Yes, but that's how good you are.
I came back for more.
You'll learn one day. So Lara, can I ask first of all, what was the winner that you decided to give your own personal prize to?
So I'll say first, Stephen, that this year's entries were all phenomenal. I've done a few of these, including one of these a couple of years ago, and the standard that I see every year just keeps improving and improving. So I guess the positive note there is, I think we continue to push the envelope, and you can see that in the ambition of some of the entries that are coming through, and the results that some of the entrants have been able to achieve with their projects. So it's all moving forward in a great way, which is always kind of fantastic for someone who's been in the industry for a little while. It was hard, right? So lots of really fantastic entries. The one that I picked as my sort of personal favorite for the chair award is not the largest campaign among all the entries, but I thought it was one that really embodied lots of different elements of what we are trying to achieve with digital advertising today. And shall I do the reveal?
Yes, please.
So basically, the entry that I chose was a project name Taking Flight with Rescue Remedy, client name Rescue Remedy UK. So that was my favorite for this year.
Thank you for that. Great build up as well. You kept me in suspense. Can you share?
If I had a drum, I would have played it.
The irony that we don't. Can you share a little bit about then? A bit more about why you chose that. What did you see in the entry itself that impressed you?
So I think what was nice about it, a couple of different themes. The first one being the diversity of the data that they chose to bring into the mix. So they used store location data, which I think they got from because we were looking at boot stores in airports. They also took in flight information data, and also like context data. I'm not talking about context as a media context, but actual environmental context. So where people were, as they were kind of ready to go on a journey, right? They were at airports, so they're ready to go on a journey. So taking into account some of those factors as well. So I loved the diversity of the data sets that they were bringing into the mix, and that was one piece. And then I guess the other piece is that really stood out is it gave equal weight to the kind of targeting elements. So using these data points to create target audiences, which is obviously one of the great powers of digital advertising. But it gave equal weight to the creative messaging as well. So bringing all of those data points to bear when it came to really personalizing or making the creative messaging suit the context and the audience as well. And all of those different pieces were quite harmonious, I thought, with this entry, and that really appealed to me. Like, I think within digital advertising, we've come a long way, especially with the use of data, to really to really use that data to ensure that we're putting our messages in front of the right people. I think we're still scratching the surface on creative. And particularly as digital advertising and programmatic goes into the world of, connected TVs and out of home, etc., the creative messaging needs to be an element of that, digital advertising in a much more profound way. So it wasn't a huge entry, but I think it had all of those wonderful elements that I like to see from a digital advertising campaign. Certainly award-winning in my eyes.
Yeah, as you say, I mean, we've talked for a while now about how data will help personalization when it comes to advertising, and really how that will heighten engagement as a result of it. So really what you've done there is recognize what you think will be the future of advertising communications. Is that what you're saying?
I think so. I think we, perhaps some of the softer elements of digital advertising have been harder to get our heads around, because what we're trying to do with data almost is to codify everything, right? So if we can put everything into formulas, then we think, and everything is measurable in that way, then it feels like it's a lot more under our control, so be able to plan and optimize and drive for ROI and all of that. But I think it's time for us to grow up now as an industry, right? So we need to start tackling those hard questions as well. Like, how do we actually bring the nuance of creativity, the nuance of messaging, the nuance of, being able to use digital advertising for multiple outcomes, multiple business outcomes, not just, short-term ones or directly measurable ones. And these are hard things to do, right? It's not something that we can codify very easily with the data points that we have, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't try to take it on. And the more entries like this one that I see that try to take this on, I think, I think we're headed in the right direction.
So from the rest of the entries that you saw from judging this year, did you spot any other trends? Is that the way that you think others are going to follow, or was there anything else that you spotted?
I think that was the big one. In terms of what I just said, I did see that theme coming across, but I'd love to see more of it. More of that kind of bringing in those creative elements, messaging elements into the mix. There was, and maybe I'm just more sensitive or more attuned to it because now I'm, sort of working in TV land. But I think there were quite a few more entrants looking at kind of the connected TV space as well. A lot of kind of new innovations coming up in that space, which of course, it's very interesting to me and very enlightening to see that people are trying lots of new things, in that medium, in that medium now. But generally, as I said before, I think, people, the entries are progressing really well. They're taking into account not just data for targeting, but data for other, for other use cases as well. And kind of more of it in the sort of the channels that are new to digital. So like the TV and the out of home audio, things like that. So, it feels like it's all moving in the right direction.
And if I was to ask your views on the future, from everything that you've experienced in recent weeks, where I'm sure connected TV is just flying right now, what do you think's going to happen as a result of all that's been experienced around the pandemic and all the innovation that's been forced through in recent weeks? Have you got any views on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a pandemic expert, but I think, if I touch on the people aspect first, I think, it's been amazing really to see, within ITV, but also across the entire industry, across the world, how quickly, we've been able to adapt to current situations. I think at ITV, you know, within hours or a day, everyone was able to, you know, work from home. You know, the technology, the technology was fantastic, and people were able to connect, and people were very quickly able to adapt to new ways of working. Now, you know, I run a data and analytics team, so I guess it's less of a surprise for us because, you know, if you have access to platforms, we can do our jobs. But actually what we saw across the entire business, and if you look at, you know, areas like production and creative and commercial, all of those teams also sort of seamlessly transitioned into new ways of working really quickly. I think the other bit, you know, from where we stand, that deserves mention as well is, you know, we're very proud actually as ITV, myself as an individual, but also ITV as a company, of the role that we have to play in this pandemic, right? As a public service broadcaster, you know, we see it as our, you know, kind of part of our reason for being, to be there for users through crises like this, you know, be that to be a trusted source of information, and I think that's needed more than ever before, but also to provide relief and entertainment for people who are stuck at home. And we've seen, as you mentioned, Stephen, record audiences across, you know, all of our programs, and it's been fantastic. You know, the sort of support that we've seen for you know, for some of the initiatives that we've been running, like around mental health and Clap for Carers, et cetera, has been fantastic. So all of that just, you know, brings warmth to the heart. In terms of how it's going to change things going forward, I mean, that's the $1 million question, isn't it? I think for sure ways of working, you know, will change. It's, you know, I think it's staggering to think that like 5-6 weeks ago, my team and I were almost always in the office, and now we can see that we can work so efficiently and effectively, and in some cases more efficiently and effectively, perhaps, with more, you know, working from home. And I think we can only make that better going forward when we have a blend of both. So I'm looking forward to seeing how we take the best of a bad situation now, blend that with the best of what we had before, and hopefully come up with an even more productive and efficient way of working going forward. And also, I think it's a bit of a reset, right? I think, you know, for sure, this is often talked about, so I don't need to go into great detail. Obviously, companies are, some companies are suffering more than others. Certainly all companies will be coming out of this having a, you know, a close look at their cash positions and, you know, business objectives. Marketing budgets, we already know, have suffered. You know, what we've said is for brands who can continue to invest in advertising, it's actually a good time, given the effective price of advertising now. And also, you know, there is space to build share of voice. But we're also very conscious that there are many brands who can't. So I think part of what we want to do is to see if we can support those brands through the crisis, how best they can manage through this crisis, but also how do they emerge of coming out of this in a strong position. And that will, you know, that will inevitably mean that we need to be more flexible in the ways that we do things, in the ways that we offer up packages, be more agile in the products that we build, and making advertising opportunity much more accessible. As you know, with the imminent launch of our media platform, Planet V, that will help quite a bit with some of those objectives in the near future.
Yeah, we're certainly seeing innovation being pushed forward at a rapid pace, but also at this point, it's encouraging to hear that companies are talking about what will come out of all of this as well. So starting to look forward to what they will become And I think that's exciting for the industry.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think, we'll come out of this stronger than ever before. We don't know exactly what the formula of that looks like yet, but I think we have the variables, right? So it's all about how we put it together. And that will be an exciting thing to see.
Well, as usual, I'm sure you're right, because you're always right. So, Lara,
I wouldn't bet on it.
I know to always agree with you as well. Lara, thank you for joining me, and again, thank you for being
Not at all.
And
absolute pleasure.
And thank you to the audience for joining us as well. Take care.